want to thank everybody for attending today. I hope everybody had a good holiday. We got one more left to get done with here, New Year's, and then hopefully I'll be back in the swing of things. As we all know, the market gets a little thin in these holiday periods, but that does not mean that there are not good opportunities out there each and every day. So for those of you who are already subscribers, good, that's fantastic. And for those of you who are not subscribers, I think after what I show you today, you're going to very seriously think about signing up. And those of you who are already subscribers, the windows that we're going to be reviewing today, hopefully, more than likely, you guys have been using these windows. So when we look at these trades today, I'm hoping that a lot of you were in these trades because there were some excellent opportunities today. So before we get started here, just a little legal. I just want to make sure that everyone is aware that we here at Trade Ideas, we are not registered investment advisors, so please do not misconstrue any of this information as a solicitation to buy or sell anything. Everything that we're presenting here today is strictly for educational purposes. So what we're going to be covering today is, finding alpha using the top lists. So let me get rid of this guy real quick here. And hopefully everybody can see my screen clearly. For those of you who haven't been keeping up with the news, Texas kind of got a nice little bit of weather, so I was delayed getting back to California. So I am on a laptop. So I've tried to cram everything in here as best I could. So Scott, does everything look like it's coming through okay over there?
Yeah, we can see your entire screen okay.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is kind of move some of these windows down to the bottom here and pull them up as we discuss them. So for those of you who are subscribers, this screen right here should look familiar. We've had several different variations of this screen, some of the small cap, the large cap, but this one is the trend change lubricant factor. So we're going to be focusing on it to get started here. So in the upper left here, I've got a 5-minute chart. In the upper right here, I've got the daily. And so let's just keep in mind the action of the market today. Here we have the pre-market and the open right here. And as everybody who was paying attention today knows, we had this nice little downward action here, which is quite obvious, no matter if you're watching the SPY, any other major indicator, or if you're like me and you like to watch the compare count windows, you're like, wow, there's definitely a lot of selling going on today in the first 30 minutes, the second 30-minute period. But then after about the hour-and-a-half mark, we saw a deceleration of the selling, and the buying came in. However, depending on the metrics that you're watching, it wasn't furious buying. It was just like, okay, it looks like the selling is done. Maybe we're going to go up here. Who knows where we're going to finish? Of course, the chart tells the story here. All right, and once again, looking at the long term, we're just vacillating in the range. So once we get through with New Year's, maybe we end up back up top here and push through, but nobody knows just yet. But the exciting thing about this window right here is that even though we had this type of activity to start the day, a lot of these stocks were just basically fueled with rocket fuel. All right, so let's take a look at this little guy right here. And for those of you who have a list similar to this, you might notice that I'm sorting this by the percent of the float traded today in this column right here. Of course, there's going to be some correlations with the volume today percentage, but this is the one that we're really focusing on. So here we have FXCM. Like I said, I hope some of you were in this stock today, because this is exactly what we've been preaching that you should watch for on these lubricant factor top lists that we've produced. We've been talking about them webinar after webinar after webinar. And once again, just to refresh everybody's memory, what we're looking for is a stock here on the daily that has been pretty much beaten up for a number of days, weeks, months even. So we can see the basing pattern that was produced here. And of course, look what this stock has been doing over the past 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 11, 12 trading days. But today, when the market was heading down, here we have the first tick of today's market. You know, I'm in the Central Time Zone, so 8:30 is the opening 5-minute bar here. And I mean, guys, ladies, gentlemen, a stock went from $11.21 almost to $20 here. All right, in a relatively down market for the first couple of hours. So, you know, it had its little pullbacks here, but my goodness, you know, if you didn't get it here, here, or here, you know, even if you didn't see this thing until it took its first pullback, there was still profit opportunity from 14 almost up to $20 a share. So, you know, this only reaffirms what we've been telling people for, you know, I don't know how many webinars it is that we've been, you know, Dan had come up with these lubricant factors, and one thing is for certain, there is some magic here, all right? So this was a very good example. This was the prime example that we look for today. And to reiterate here, you know, it's not like you even had to jump, if you got this thing in the morning or you made entries today, unless you bought it right up here, which probably people would be very hesitant to purchase a stock once it got up into this territory here. But the bottom line is this. The reason we've been pumping these screens out to everyone is so that you can take a look at this long-term chart here. And once the stocks start showing up, you know where your bottom is. You know, if you would have seen it on this day as it started jumping up from 5, and you're keeping an eye on it. Okay, let's pretend that we're looking at it on the 14th. And once we see this escalation right here, and if we draw a line straight across from that previous consolidation, this is a consolidation break. For those of you who have heard me speak before or have had a training session with me in the past, this is the type of day trading pattern, the intraday pattern that I look for. But once again, we can see it, you know, manifesting itself in the daily bars too. So, you know, just kind of reiterating the basics of these types of windows, if you were alerted to the stock on this day and you see it breaking this little consolidation period here, well then we can make the assumption that, well, it's found its bottom. So I wouldn't mind, you know, picking up a couple of thousand shares of a $5 stock. I don't mind holding that overnight, because I know where my bottom is here. If I, you know, if right here is where I made my entry, 1,000, 2,000 shares, well then my stop loss is going to be right below this bar here. So we're looking at low risk factors with extremely high multiples of potential return, potential alpha here. And we can see that this was a prime example, you know. I'm hoping that some of the Trade Ideas clients, maybe some of you in this room, are long somewhere in this area. Maybe you are, maybe not. Maybe you bought it today and got a nice intraday move out of it. But the bottom line is you need to be watching these types of windows. Okay, so FXCM was definitely the big winner today, but there was plenty more to go around. And once again, the power in a window of this nature is quite obvious when the market is trending down, but these guys are going up. And that's what we try to reiterate over and over again here is our technology, our AI is set up in such a way that we can take massive amounts of data and rearrange them into something that actually makes sense. And, you know, we're not having to rely on a lot of the old traditional metrics that have been around for ages. All right, so let's keep on looking at these guys here. ATNM, pharmaceuticals, all right, actinium. Once again, the bottoming pattern was already put in. However, if you look at the stock today, it is in its breakout mode. Now, ideally, yes, we'd like to try to get into them and, you know, do a little swing trading. But once again, look at what this stock did right off the open. It did nothing but go straight up. Now, it's a smaller dollar stock, but, you know, 260 to 290, that's not a bad move in a market that was heading down for the majority of the first 2 hours of the day here. Let's continue. Another one, this one kind of looks like it jived with the market. But once again, you know, if the SPY puts in its bottom, and let me just pull that pull the SPY back up here. You know, it puts in its bottom, it makes its bounce. We crack the highs here, but we didn't just, you know, go up to extreme levels here. This is all post-market right here. So, you know, as far as the high of the day, we're looking at the little wick right here. So this one kind of went with the market, but not everything capitulated as well as this one did. Once again, a capitulation, maybe this one was a little bit before the market. When we see this little bottoming, let me just try to enlarge this a little bit. Bear with me as I am on a laptop keyboard today, so I might be a little handicapped. But we're looking here at SONS. Once again, not a very high dollar stock. But once again, pretty liquid stock. Spreads aren't too bad. So, you know, when we're doing a stock like this, you know, I can speak for myself here, we're probably doing thousands of shares here, whether it's 1,000, 2,000, 5,000. And, you know, when we see this little bottoming pattern here, that's a very good tell. You know, put in its wick down here, the low 708. So when we're looking at it in this bar or this bar, our exit is clearly defined right here. Right below that wick is where I would have put my stop in here. Maybe if I'm feeling, you know, even a little bit more confident, I'd go put my stop in, make it break that hold number, you know, make it push through 7 to get me out, put my stop in at 699. But, you know, whichever way you decide to go in that capacity, look at what the stock did. You know, nothing but buying, probably not the hugest float in the world. The thing finished trading, let's see, about 2% of its float today, which once again is not a huge amount, but you know, when the stock is set up like this and we've got that momentum, the end result is the same. You're seeing stocks that went up a lot more than the market did today coming off of this list here. So let's continue. BOFI kind of gyrated a little bit right here. In the end, went with the market, but probably went exceptionally more than your indexes. So, you know, we can keep on going down this list, and it's just the same song and dance. So, you know, just this one list right here yielded literally a treasure trove of stocks today that if you played them, if you went long, even when the market was, you know, looking kind of bleak there in the beginning, you were never stressed out that much, and they all ended up working. So let's take a look at one more here. This one probably would have been a little bit more difficult to play. Of course, we're not looking at very huge increments over here. So the song and dance is the same. These stocks pretty much finished, you know, at or close to their highs, and we could go about resorting this list in many different capacities. So right now I'm sorting by percentage of float traded. Well, what if we went over here and just kind of did a reverse here? We're going to see basically the same types of stocks here. You know, and when we do see a stock like this, this pattern is not very conducive. But there were a couple of other stocks today, not from this list specifically. So let's do this. Let's just push this guy down. And once again, I'm working with some very constricted screen space here, so bear with me. Here we have another list, which, you know, keeping in tradition with our AI cluster, Holly, a nice move off the open. This one capitulated. So let me make sure I'm sorting this list properly. Bear with me 1 second here. Okay, 1 minute volume. There were a couple of other good ones here. All right, NPTN was exhibiting extremely high 1 minute volume today. You know, we've got a low of 1060 here, then it made a really nice run all the way up to 1140 by the close. So once again, another stock almost making a 10% run intraday on a day where there was a big downdraft and the rest of the market didn't catch until, you know, well into 2 to 3 hours after the open. So, these thinner stocks, a lot of people kind of paint themselves into a corner. I get this a lot when I'm conducting training sessions. And, myself, along with most of the crew here at Trade Ideas, we've kind of started veering away from the traditional metrics. And I'm not just talking about relative strength indicators, MACDs, things of that nature. I'm talking about average daily volumes. So, a lot of the times we go, okay, set up your minimum maximum price. We go to the average daily volume and we're like, okay, we need to make ourselves feel good here, 500,000 shares a day minimum. Well, as you all know, if any of you have used that metric, whether it's 500, 400, 300,000, 500,000 kind of gives us a little, I guess, confidence booster where we're thinking to ourselves, okay, 500,000 shares means it's going to be a liquid stock. However, most of you out there have probably run some scans with that type of criteria, and you end up finding some thinly traded stocks anyway, which, a lot of them, let's just see if we can find one here. Oh, and by the way, DDR today. Look at this opening bar here. What do we have? A range of 1676 down to 1643. Not a big move in and of itself when you're looking at the increments that this stock trades in. But there were some other plays today that exhibited the same pattern where when we see an opening bar like this, and then the next bar opens here, when it runs all the way down and comes all the way back up, that is one of the biggest tells that any stock could ever give to you. Simply because, obviously the selling was overdone, retraces all the way back up, and the next bar is here. That's going to give me a lot of confidence whether I make an entry in this bar or whether I wait 5, 10, 15 minutes and start to see this little micro consolidation. This also looks like an NR7 pattern. So when I start to see something like this might be a little premature, but this is the big tell. It tells me that the buyer is really there. This was an exaggerated sell. It looks like we did about 815,000 shares. Yeah. On this bar right here in the opening 15 minutes, it did a huge amount of volume. Big seller came in, they sucked it right up. Then we had this little pattern right here forming itself. So especially if I'm in this bar right here and I'm tracking this stock, I have no qualms about putting on 2, 3, 4, 5,000 shares, putting my stop loss right under here, and letting nature take its course. So I really don't have a preset routine, or these stocks are not, I don't have a list here that I'm going down. I'm simply going through these top list, just freestyle right here, because regardless of the pattern, there are lots of different metrics in play here that can help us, feel confident about what we're doing. Probably a little bit thin for most people, but hey, if you're a big block trader, there's money in this guy right here, depending on your commission rate, of course. All right, BRFS, another one that started off right here, never really went down much at all, put in these wicks right here, and once again, these are very telling candlestick patterns right here. Try to go down, wicked back up, little up bar, try to go back down again here. So once I see two of these, especially once I see two of these forming, it's I won't call it a no-brainer, all right, but I'm very confident in getting long in a stock of this nature. Once I see this wick and this wick, whether I buy here, 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 I'm going to put my stop loss in right outside of those wicks. Had you have done that today, once again, another decent move on a pretty low dollar stock. From, $14.90 up to $15.31, chances are you could have been in some nice size on that one. All right, moving right along here. We're just going to pass on that one when we're looking at penny increments. Not to say that those things can't be profitable, but probably just not real, appealing to a lot of people. REXI. And this is a good example of the thinly traded stock because as we talk about all the time, this is where alpha hides. Most people aren't looking at these types of plays. They look at a chart like this and they just immediately go, no. Well, you know, when we think about it for a moment, most of us aren't doing massive amounts of shares. And when we see a stock like this, let's just take a look at a bar here. And these two bottom bars here that put in the bottom, and then we see this little guy right here coming off of the list like this. And just everybody needs to keep in mind, this pattern that I'm looking for, these bottoming patterns and these wicks, are pretty much exclusive to these top lists that we're covering today. When I'm looking to, go with a trend or an intraday breakout, I'm looking at different metrics. But to simplify matters here, when we're thinking about making an entry, whether we're a swing trader and we're looking at, okay, I was first made aware of the stock down here in its basing pattern. So maybe, here are the two big days. A lot of the times we want to try to be positioned in the stock before the big days happen. So I don't mean to get too carried away on the intraday because there's a lot of alpha. Most of the alpha in these types of plays is getting long before these types of days occur, so that by the time that this day and this day occurs, we're just sitting back enjoying the ride going, okay, don't get too nervous. Let's just figure out a good exit point, all right? Whether that's 1 day, 2 days, how many ever, we're already in it at the best possible price. So obviously if you're a swing trader and you started getting the alert maybe here, or once again, see these two little wicks right here, and let me try to enlarge this a little bit. Once we see days like this, boom, boom, and then maybe we get alerted to it for the first time on this day, all we have to do is, draw some lines and look at those resistance levels and go, okay, if it busts here or here, it's probably going to go, especially if it's bouncing off some pivot points, whether those are, regular pivot points or the Camarillo pivot points or any other type of pivots or support and resistance levels that you like to look at. So once again, the bigger money is in the intraday play, getting long, using that basing pattern as your exit. But for the intraday people who don't like to hold overnight, these stocks are still very conducive. But getting back to the point here about the liquidity, people might look at this chart and go, man, this thing's just too spotty for me. But if we start looking at the amounts of shares that are being traded in these bars, even this little bitty one right here, 63,000 shares traded in that bar. So even though it's gappy, and even though sometimes on these little dashes here, it's still trading some decent volume. And I think I made a mistake there. In this bar right here, 450 shares. In this bar right here, 3,500 shares. Which, once again, going back to the point, in a stock like this, I'm still going to get 500, 400 shares, because it's plenty liquid, even though it looks like it does on the chart. Once again, this is where the money hides. This is where the alpha hides. This is where most people are not looking, to trade things, because once again, people have these preconceived notions. I only trade stocks that trade 1 million shares a day. Well, why do you do that? Because it's liquid. Well, it might be liquid, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to do what you think it's going to do. So, keeping in mind that these lists, the first one we started with, the positive money lubricant factor for the small and the large caps, and now we've started making different variations of those lists because they've proven to be, so successful. Okay, so let's keep on going here. And this one's a little spotty. If this was more filled in, it might be a little bit more attractive to an intraday guy. But looking at the long term, the pattern is the same on the daily. If you get the alert here, on this day or this day, it's very easy to look here and realize what your risk is. And if you're comfortable with that risk, then this really doesn't hold a lot of water, because if you're already in it, it's still going up. Your risk is defined, and when we look at this on the daily, They just kind of look like regular bars. Might be a little bit scary on the intraday, but once again, if in each of these bars a couple of thousand shares are being traded, that's plenty of liquidity for most day traders. All right. Once again, FNFV. The big breakout has already happened. But still, looking, once a stock is in this mode, how many days will it continue to go up? Unknown, but most of the ones that we're looking at right now, boom, boom, how many days is this one going up, from its base? And once again, here's that wicking pattern right here. It tried to go down. They brought it back up. It tried to go down again. The sellers sucked it, the sellers came in, the buyers sucked it up. So once again, when we see these wicking patterns here, this is always a very good indicator. Always something that, when I see a pattern like this on the daily, it takes the stress away, because I'm like, okay, I'm buying it here, I'm using these wicks as my out, it's going to have to penetrate that wick, it's already tried to do it 2 times, it couldn't do it, so therefore I'm going to get long the stock. Whether you're long-term or intraday, these lists yield fruit. Okay, so let me do something real quick here. Boy, once you're used to 100 inches of screen space and you're relegated to a laptop, you feel quite silly. Okay, float on. Once again, we're sorting over here by percent of float traded. So here we are looking at NPTN. Once again, looks familiar. Bottomed out right here. Once we start going up, the stock literally just went straight up for the rest of the day. Higher than the indices, because everybody needs to keep in mind, what did we finish at today? Let's see here from the prior close. Yeah, so we did have a nice little run here, but let me shrink this up a little bit more here. But we didn't get back to here. So that was the prior close. We had the gap down. We almost got back to the top, or we almost got back to here, but not quite. It was a valiant effort. So the point I'm trying to make is, yes, the S&P did bounce, but most of the stocks that we're seeing went a lot more than the indices did. Okay, so for those of you who do not have these lists that we're looking at here, at the end of the webinar, anybody that would like these windows, all you have to do is email info@trade-ideas.com. We'll be happy to forward these cloud links over to you. But before we move on here, there's just a couple of more things I wanted to kind of look at here. If my mouse would cooperate. Okay, you can do it. All right, well, this list doesn't seem to want to cooperate with me. So what I'd also like to point out is, in the beginning of the in the market, there were some very good short opportunities that just kind of, stuck out like a sore thumb. And let me bring up another layout here. Bear with me. Okay, so when we were, when the market was open, for those of you who watch your compare count windows, some of you may have heard me speak about this before. I like to compare the count between the stocks hitting highs and lows that are doing extremely high 1 minute volume. So if we go back and look at this top list here, let me go back in time so that we can see what it looked like about in the first 30 minutes. So let's see here. That would be 9 o'clock my time. Typically it would be 7 o'clock my time. That's the guy I was looking for right there. Once again, I'm going to revert back to a very simple methodology here. Okay, so at this point in the day, I was looking at my volume radar, which most of you might be familiar with this list as well, because the beauty is in its simplicity. So at that point in time of the day, when the market was, exhibiting this little downward pattern here, I was like, okay, I want to participate in some shorts today, but which ones to do? All right, and let's see. Thank you, laptop keyboard. Okay, there we go. So just keep in mind this little gray area right here is pre-market activity. So we can see VRX closed the prior Friday way up here, started trading down the pre-market. Even though this activity right here is pre-market, and this is what I really like about the charts that we've built, is we can show pre-market and we can show post-market, and we do it in a way that is very simple. Hey, the gray is pre-market. And then what I've noticed is I start seeing the patterns like this. I'm like, yeah, but that's pre-market. And then I tell myself, you know what, Jamie? It just doesn't matter. A pattern is a pattern. So, when I saw this happening today, this also came through this window here. Turbo breaks down, VRX, new low, doing a minimum of 3 times normal 1 minute volume. And it just happened to be here on my top list as well. So I could see right here, not only was the 3 times normal 1 minute volume coming through on the 1 minute, but all these other time frames were extremely high as well. So when I see a pattern like this, I mean, it's almost instantaneous, second nature. Just short it right here, put your stop in right here. So this is one of my better short trades for the day. VRX here, ended up covering sometime down here. Once this pattern presents itself, you're like, okay, well, I think I've gotten most of it. It may go down tomorrow if I'm willing to hold, but I'm not really an overnight guy most of the time unless it's the smaller dollar stocks on a long, because as we all know, you really don't want to take large amounts of small dollar stocks home because they can really ruin your day. Not only ruin your day, but they might just ruin your account. So, when I am doing overnight stuff, it's low dollar stocks, medium dollar stocks on a long position most of the time. But, once again, simple metrics, when you see 2 different windows spitting out the same thing, that's even more of an affirmation that the trade is good. So these patterns were all over the place today. Simple range breaks from the open. And of course, I could show you 1,000 other charts that look like this today. Problem is, they made a new low by a few pennies, maybe 20 cents, you're in the money a quarter, and then all of a sudden they pop back up into the range. Now the reason that this one actually did what I thought it was going to do is because the volume was there and there was no stopping it. It's like I say all the time, this stock was a raging river. All I have to do is throw my inner tube in, jump in, and float down the river. Then I get out, say thank you. Now, if this same pattern presented itself with no volume, it's basically like you're throwing your inner tube into a dried up creek with a bunch of mud in it. You don't want to take that ride. So regardless of the pattern that you're trading, if the volume is there on a continuation, you have a lot more probability of that thing doing what you think it's going to do. If the volume is not there, you're probably going to have issues. All right, so moving right along here, just wanted to give you guys a taste of that as well. And then keeping in mind that most of the day, the indices were red. We almost got back to the top, but not quite. Let's take a look at what Holly did today, because even though it wasn't up a whole lot, being positive in a market like this is something to be said. Because once again, what is the goal here? The overall goal is to beat the S&P, which I think we're doing pretty handily at this point in time, considering that we're still in beta. And if we look at the basis points, even though we were only up a quarter today on well, hold on, I'm looking at the wrong screen. Okay, so here are all the trades today from Holly, the AI. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 trades. Not a stellar performance of 25 cents. However, we still made 9 basis points, or should I say, she still made 9 basis points on a day when the SPY was down. So, ladies and gentlemen, that speaks volumes. So, if you wrap it all into one nice package now, the AI strategies, the positive money lubricant factor, the trend change factor, whether you're playing intraday breakouts to the upside or the downside with accelerated volume, the ones that have the higher percentage chance of doing what you think they're going to do. I mean, it all lines up to be the perfect storm of profitable trading. And the cool thing is we just keep adding more and more and more. Pretty soon we're going to have the risk management aspects of Holly in place. Of course, us being humans interacting with this technology, most of you that are watching the AI channel have probably outperformed it, because when you have a nice profitable position in a stock, let's say you're up a point, chances are you're not going to let that thing turn into a loser, because we're going to be like, okay, we're up, we're supposed to get out now, but the thing's still trending in my favor, so I'm going to use the previous 5-minute candle as my exit. And then instead of making a point, making a point and a half. Or instead of, since, Holly can't preserve her profits right now, a stock that was up a point that ended up being a loser is not the case for you. So the bottom line is this year is going to be even more exciting than the past year. We've got some really cool stuff coming out, more enhancements to the AI channel, more lists like what I just showed you. So, it's going to be a very exciting year. So just keep that in mind. And I guess it's probably a pretty good time to answer some questions.
Yeah, we had an early one about the difference between the AI and the odds maker and what the AI is. So if you could kind of give a little primer on that.
Sure, not a problem. So the odds maker is our in-house backtester. So for example, and of course keep in mind it's only applicable to alert windows where we use alerts and filters together. So here I have an alert window. If I right click and go into configure, this assortment of alerts and filters that make up this window, we can always just refer to this as the event that we're looking for. So in this alert window, I have a very basic filter set right here and only one alert. So, in order for this strategy window to spit out a symbol, the filter set has to be satisfied. One of the stocks meeting that filter criteria has to exhibit the alert that we have here, therefore exhibiting this event. So anytime this event happens in any of these markets, this alert window is going to tell us about it. Now, the odds maker, for those of you who are familiar with the history, you know that our historical length is 65 trading days, just a little over 3 months on the calendar. So, for example, if I right-click and I come over here to real time, now this window is showing me everything that this configuration spawned today, and eventually I would get back to the open today, and it would start showing me all of last week's trades. It goes back 65 trading days. So the odds maker, if I just pop this back on real time, if I right-click and say backtest strategy, the odds maker panel pops up. This allows me to attach a rule set to that 65-day history and run a backtest and say, okay, if I treated these events in this capacity, either went long or went short, and we can set up the trade, when we want to take trades. In this case, it's saying wait 15 minutes until after the open, and we can see here we can adjust that time. So we could say, down to a 1-minute increment. So I could say, okay, I'm going to take all the trades between 8:45 a.m. and 10 a.m. And then when we come to the next tab, this is where we can dictate our hold time. So for intraday, we have minutes after entry, or we could hold till a specific time of day. And for the swing trading people out there, we could go the longer time frames. We could say, give me out tomorrow at the open, give me out tomorrow at the close, or get me out after 30 days, anywhere between tomorrow and 64 days. So for simplicity's sake, we could just say, okay, let's see what happens if we buy these stocks and we dump them after 15 minutes. Well, we can also click here and assign stop loss profit targets by enabling these fields. And we can use either percentage or dollar amounts in this capacity, along with some other types of things like filter values or specific alerts within the product to act as additional exit criteria. But in a nutshell, the odds maker is the back tester. Now, how does that differ from the AI channel? Well, for those of you who are odds maker subscribers, you already know once you run that initial scan, you come up with an idea and then you back test it. Sometimes the back test reflects what you thought would happen. But a lot of the times, what we thought was going to happen is not the case. So let me just run a quick scan right here just to give an illustration of what I'm talking about. So we'll just say, buy everything between these time between 8:45 and 10. And let's just dump it after 15 minutes. And for simplicity's sake, we're not going to use a stop loss or a profit target. We just want to see what would have happened if we did that. We can also dictate the number of days that we want to backtest by using this little slider bar right here. So we'll just backtest 30 days. I say simulate buy. Then what you're seeing here is the odds maker going back and grabbing all and 10 a.m. over the past 30 days, and it's applying the simple rule set. If we bought these stocks and just sold them after 15 minutes, what would have happened? And of course, it's probably not going to be a very good result, but once the tally is done here, we'll see the results. All right, we should be okay. So the information here, what we're seeing is over the past 30 days, if you took all the trades between 8:45 and 10 a.m., we're looking at almost 3,000 trades that occurred over the past 30 days. And if we just bought them and dumped them after 15 minutes, not a very good technique, not a very good strategy, with those types of factors. Our average winner is less than our average loser, and we're only winning a little over 49% of the time. So if we wanted to try to improve this statistical output as a human being, we would have to go to the optimization tab and start trying to find, certain ways we could optimize. And, here's what we have as far as what we can optimize by. We can optimize by price, time of day, or symbol. Or we can optimize by any other filter that is contained within trade ideas. So if I was trying to find some gold here and I thought, well, maybe there's some correlation between how much the stock has went up or down in the past 5 trading days. So I'm like, okay, well, let's see what's here. Well, we can see the change in 5 days percentage when these values occur. We're getting green, and we can see the success rate. So that if we added that filter and reran the scan, hopefully we could improve these statistical output numbers. However, the catch is this. We might sit here and try to optimize a data set for hours. Maybe we find something good, but there's also the chance that we could optimize for 2 hours and find nothing. It's kind of like mining for gold. You might find some gold, you might not. It depends on if you're on the right track or not. So the optimization process is very time-consuming and cumbersome. So what the AI channel is doing, hey Scott, Scotty boy, thank you. So what the AI is doing behind the scenes is we've got a core of strategies. It's probably creeping up on 100 core strategies now that every day, once the market closes, we fold in today's market data And once the server is done updating all of today's data, then our AI and the custom software that we've written to teach the AI how to optimize does the optimization for us. So in essence, every day, if I just let me get back to my toolbar here so that I can point this out clearly. So every morning when the AI strategy loads up, when you pull up your AI strategy window. So for example, today there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There were 9 strategies in the hopper for today's activity. And we can see the win percentage for those strategies, which they were all over 60%. But these strategies were the best ones out of literally maybe 100 strategies that were optimized by our AI. So tomorrow morning, you might see some of the same strategies in here, or you might see completely different ones, depending on which ones generated the best score according to our AI. So the work that the AI is putting in behind the scenes to get ready for the next trading day is literally thousands of man hours, because you and I could never optimize at that rate. What the AI can do in a matter of hours, 6 or 7 hours, would literally take us months to achieve. So just like the odds maker backtests 3,000 trades in about 20 seconds, which we could never do, then the additional AI algorithms that we've written to do the optimizing for us even take it to the next level. So I hope that kind of explains the difference between the odds maker and the AI channel.
Hey, here's another one. Just a question about the top list you demonstrated. Not sure if it makes sense though, but would they ever be collaborated into the alerts within AI? Being that the top list was so different than alerts, I'm not sure exactly what he wants to find out about that.
Well, the AI strategies are based around alert windows, because that's, the top list window is just looking at filters only. And then we're rearranging those filtered stocks that show up on the list by the metrics that we deem to be important. So you're never going to see, well, I can't say never, I just don't see any reason why a top list would ever be inserted into the AI channel, because the list is more for manual trading, whereas these optimized strategies are to take the burden off of the human being and go, okay, I know that anything coming out of here today has X% chance of working and has been highly optimized. So you won't necessarily see any top lists showing up in the AI window because it's apples and oranges. However, those top lists can be made available for you to display on your desktop. So, when you're watching a top list for manual trading, then you have the AI cluster to monitor as well. Well, then you have both of those very powerful windows at your disposal.
So, okay, Carl was wondering that since the AI is in beta, what changes will be implemented in the main release or improvements? Well, Carl, that's really depends on where we decide to stop building into the beta and actually just work on refining it for the major release. So that's still undetermined.
Right.
Can you recommend some ways to test and improve a newly created top list? I guess he's inquiring similarly to the way the odds maker helps you optimize the alert structure.
Right, and just to reiterate, I mean, a top list, the genesis of the top list kind of went like this. The very first window we ever created that was Trade Ideas back in late 2002, the very first thing we ever came out with was the alert window. However, since the filters in the alert window, and let me just show an example here. So once again, here's an alert window. If I go into configure, we have filters and alerts, right? This is the way this window was designed to work. But over time, people figured out, because we told them, that these filters work in the all or none capacity all the time. No matter how many we have, they all have to be met simultaneously. So people eventually said, you know what? I don't want to use an alert. I just want to know when these filters have been satisfied. Well, that's really not the best method. If you want to watch, a filter set being completed, the alert window might not be the best way to do that. So that was what prompted us to invent the top list. Because when we're looking at a top list, basically what we're doing is we're only filtering. So if I go to this top list and we look in here, you'll notice there is no alert tab. All we do is set up the filter set. And so when the market is open, you know that any stock showing up here meets that filter criteria. And then it's just about installing the filters across the top here that we deem important, and everybody's different, right? So, keeping in mind that the filter list that we currently have is quite lengthy and ever expanding. So, between all these filters that we're listing here, not only can we incorporate them into the all or none filter set, but we can also display any of those filters as columns. So, with a top list, it's just about getting your filter set in place, and then depending on what you as a trader want to focus on, you install that filter as a column. So I hope that makes sense. We still connected?
I was on mute. So markets keep changing from time to time. What type of optimization will help adjust for changing markets? Well, Satish, I think the answer to that is just constant optimization, which is what the AI does. The AI is constantly, every night, going through, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of iterations of the filters and everything to find the optimum filter set. Does the AI? How does the AI do on indexes? Does the AI do indexes?
Well, we don't have the AI trying to optimize for indexes right now because those are just single symbols. What we have the AI doing is finding the best of what it determines to be the best events to watch the next day based on a statistical basis and a proprietary scoring system that we've invented. So, when we're looking at these strategies right here, we can see the win percentage. But this is only one small factor of the equation that we've established, right? So we've developed a scoring system which looks at various factors, not just the win percentage. But, once again, that's proprietary. But the bottom line is, highly optimized.
Let's see. How would I see from top window where I choose? Okay, I'm going to have to reread that one and parse it again. Will the system work for Forex trading? Has it ever been tested? Marius, we do not do Forex. There's no central exchange for Forex, which is part of the primary issue for a software like ours working on it. Is it fair to say that the top lists are results of scan with predefined filters?
Repeat that question, please.
Is it fair to say that the top lists are results of scan with predefined filters?
Well, by predefined filters, if you're meaning, our filter list, all of these filters are predefined, correct? So, in essence, yes, a top list is an assortment of predefined filters, but they're filters that you put together yourself, right? Because in essence, technically, every filter that we have is a predefined filter.
Okay, I think I understand the question from Manish now. He basically is trying to figure out how to make an alert window less noisy when he sees repeated symbols. Basically show him the do not repeat functionality. I think that's what he's looking for.
Yeah, exactly. So, as with all alert windows, hold on, my mouse doesn't want to cooperate here. Okay. So, for example, this window here, very simple filter set. Now, the more filters I add, the less hits I'm going to have coming through this window because we keep reducing the information stream down smaller and smaller. But, for example, in this one, we will see the repeats because the alert is simply a new low. So every time that stock hits a new low by a penny, it's technically another low. Now, if you don't want to see the repeats, it's very simple, just to right click, and I believe where they have put it is under properties and view mode. Oh, wait. Actually, all we have to do is put this back on real time to get that to show itself, and we just come down to the don't repeat. Let's see here. Don't repeat under properties, and then we can check this box and say don't repeat anywhere from 1 minute to all these time frames to don't ever repeat for a day, an hour, 30 minutes. So that's probably the way you want to go if you don't want to see the repeats coming through there. Is just select your time frame and set it accordingly.
Kim, no, the AI is not available at the $99 per month. That requires the odds maker license, which is the one-time $1,100 cost. Toward the end of the webinar, I'll go ahead and show you how you can get in at that at a lower price when Jamie's done answering the questions.
Alrighty, any other questions out there?
See a couple feature requests, so I'll leave it open for a bit more for questions. Ben asks, are these strategies the AI is testing the pre-built ones? Well, Ben, they're seeded. We start with some strategies that are seeded by our staff, and then they are optimized by the AI. They're not the predefined ones that you can find, like, for example, when you open an alert window and open the pre-existing strategies that we include to get you started. These would be strategies that our trading staff has used successfully. So they would not necessarily be those predefined strategies like bullish strategies. They will be, although some of them may have started that way and then been altered, they're probably not.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Scott.
So it's like testing turbo breakdowns plus hundreds of others. Yeah, pretty much, Ben. It's basically running through any possible type of filter parameter combinations with a seed strategy that started with. So we're selecting the alerts and some predefined beginnings to it, like pricing, etc. And then the AI runs through thousands of different parameters to find what would be, whether or not this could possibly work, first of all, to find out if it's one that's going to float to the surface, and then if it is one that floats to the surface, how to get it to the best possible statistical, highest statistical probability that we can do it with it in that current market condition. How do you know if the trend is still continuing? Well, we have a high statistical probability of the trend continuing, but it's impossible to absolutely predict anything.
Right, and keep in mind, these are based on, one of the only scientific things that we can apply to the market, other than chart reading, is statistical probability. Now, we all know it's not a guarantee, but it's one of the best bets we have when we're engaging in combat with the market. Statistical probability, it's kind of like if we have a base of 100 strategies, it's the base, it's the foundation. Then, the AI goes through all the foundations and sees how much it can build on top of the foundation while that house is still structurally intact. If it builds it so high and it becomes unstable, then it's not a good candidate. So, I don't know if that's necessarily a good analogy, but, we start with a very strong base and we see how the AI can improve upon it, but we don't just do that, every once in a while. We do it every day, and what led to that methodology is when myself and Dan and Brad and some of the other guys here at Trade Ideas, we would manually configure a strategy and spend hours configuring that strategy. And guess what? It might work for a day, 2 days, 7 days, but the one guarantee that the market will give you is that whatever you have that's working is going to eventually stop working. So, therein came the genesis of what we have in place today, which is let's take all of the market data at the end of every day, fold that back into the equation, into the database, and re-optimize everything. And the only thing that makes that possible is the AI that we've written to do the optimization, because we could never get it done, not in months. Whereas the AI can run all these simulations, thousands of simulations for each and every strategy of 100. That's 100,000 simulations a night minimum. So therein
Yeah.
lies the power of the system.
I think it's actually 800,000 simulations or something like that. But
Right. Well,
it's
yeah. I mean,
it's a lot. It's more than any human or bank of humans could do. It takes a series of servers running our software to do it.
and that's a very good point to bring up, is that the technology that was previously reserved only for high-end, high-dollar hedge funds, Bank of America, Goldman Sachs, we're making available to our clients
So just to
because
kind
we
of clarify for Ben,
designed it.
since I saw his question come in about if he buys the AI and he sees a nice chart from it, but he doesn't know if it's actually going, but he actually doesn't know if it's going to continue. What's the point of buying it? It's simply that we provide what it provides you is the best statistical analysis possible for that strategy. It is not a green and red buy or sell signal though. It's but it's pretty much tells you that it basically points out this is going to have a high probability of being a long today or a short today or whatever and then whatever the parameters are. It's not an absolute though, and you could actually, if you disagree with it, you might actually do good going against it. But what it does is it does show you stuff that is going to be absolutely interesting in today's market. Like this is going to be interesting for you to watch today. Take a look. And that's basically what it is worth because saves you all that time of research. It saves you hours and hours of research time. Plus, you're going to be exposed to opportunities you would have never found, and they are going to be stocks that probably are not the pet stocks of so many other people that are constant. They're going to mess up the kind of mess with the flow. Uh,
Yeah, and if you
Jamie,
look
I was gonna,
right here, if you look at my screen today, only 4 strategies produced trades today, and you can see how they performed. This one has a 66.7% chance of working over the past 65 trading days. It spit out 1 trade today, and it won it, and it was a winner. So that one operated at 100% accuracy today, whereas this guy operates normally at just slightly under 61% over the past 65 trading days, but it performed at 66.7% accuracy today because it had 3 trades and had 2 winners, I believe, and 1 loser. So here we can see the trades for that specific strategy.
so a way to think about
2
this would
nice
be
winners.
more like Moneyball, or if you know the 538 guys for predicting political
Exactly.
performances, it's what it is. It's really good, deep statistical analysis without putting any emotion into it at all, and
Mm-hmm.
that can really get you far if you decide to just do that and keep your emotions out of it, and and monitor it yourself. We do have some black and gray box automated trading available through Lightspeed right now, and also I think Sterling and Interactive Brokers is getting a new robot soon from us. So once you decide that you do trust the AI, you can have it trade automatically for you through specific brokers. But this is probably a good time, Jamie, since we've passed the top of the hour, to just kind of roll over to slide 4 on the presentation, and then I'll direct people's attention to the handout panel on your GoToWebinar interface. There's a PDF right there in the handout panel on your GoToWebinar interface for you to download that contains this same slide and the next slide as well. So it's a way to thank you for showing up at our webinars. Those of you who do not currently have a subscription can use this code, OFFICE, all capital letters, 28 on checkout before midnight on December 31st. And what that does is let you subscribe to Trade Ideas for half off of your first month, or save 25% off of your first year. You can also save 30% off the Odds Maker AI lifetime license, so that's 30% off of the 1100. Or if you go to the next slide, here's a combo that we're going to be retiring when we release version 4 as a stable release rather than beta, which it currently is, and that's the version that has the AI in it. And if you go to that website, bit.ly/SAVE700, that shortened URL takes you to the page on Trade Ideas where you can click through to buy the full year and the lifetime odds maker license for just $12.88. So that saves you $700 immediately. What that package is great for also are those of you who are currently on the monthly plan and would like to upgrade and to get into AI. And if you're going to buy the AI, then you're already confident enough in trade ideas to get the year. So you may as well upgrade to the year and AI. And then just shoot us an email letting us know you did that. Send it to info@tradeideas.com, and we'll make sure that your monthly subscription is turned off and you're just on the annual at that point. Again, thank you everyone for joining us. Any questions, email us, info@tradeideas.com. Or, you can email Jamie, jhodge at trade-ideas.com if you have any questions at all. Again, thanks everyone. The recording will be available by tomorrow morning, and you'll get an email with the link. Yeah, thanks guys. There's going to be a question and answer demo session on Wednesday. You might have already gotten an email about that. Sign up for that too if you have more questions. We also spend a good half hour or more answering questions during that presentation as well. Jamie, thank you. Enjoy Texas. Say hi to your family, and talk to you soon.
Yes, hopefully I can make it out on a plane sometime soon. And I just want to thank everybody for attending, and we will see you next week.
Yep. Cheers, y'all. Bye.